What up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Grid and Grind Show brought to you by the Off the Bench podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Ball, and today we are talking to United Grid League's 2024 Bodyweight Specialist of the Year. And, I don't want to just narrow it down to Bodyweight Specialist of the Year because David Blatt, if you check him out on social media at David Blatt 2, let me tell you something. We're going to talk his CrossFit total that he just posted, but the dude has got some absolute baller strength. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But before David joins us, we got some business to attend to. We got to pay the bills. You got to plug them sponsors. Chinook Seedery, whether you're on the field or in the boardroom signing deals, Chinook helps you get the job done. Memphis City Designs, get your brands, gear, logos on everything from shoes to underoos. Get your off the bench gear while supplies last. It's cold here in Florida. Get your hoodies from Memphis City. They got the nice 50-50 polyester cotton blend, the softest, cloudiest, just beautiful, comforting. Makes you feel warm just looking at it. So imagine what it's like having it on. Go get it now while supplies last. Relief Chiropractic, Dr. Vic Robinson. He's got the magic hands. He's rejuvenating lives. He's adding years to folks' lives. So go see him. And finally, Old Dominic Distillery. Experience 150 years of tradition in the heart of downtown Memphis. From bourbon to vodka, whiskey to gin. Old Dominic's got you covered. Stop in today for a tour or to pick up your favorite bottle. And as always, tell them DB, tell them Jim, tell them the Off the Bench crew sent you. And with that, the bills have been paid. So we got to get to it. Help me welcome on to the show with the biggest interview in podcasting this week. 2024 United Grid League Bodyweight Specialist of the Year from the Southwest Florida Sharks, Mr. David Blatt. David, my man, how we doing today, dude?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm trying to stay warm, man. Here in Tampa, it's a little chilly. Woke up this morning and there was a 3.8 on the temperature scale, and that's not good. We're not talking Celsius. It's pretty cold. Running this morning wasn't fun. I usually run every morning with my dog, and she looked at me and she was like, "What are we doing? What's going on here?"
I swear, last time I was in Florida, this was in like November. I swear there was a 9. There was a 9 where it started. And a 3 2 months later, that's absolutely crazy.
Well, believe it or not, it was 75 yesterday. So I mean, you go from the reason why you live in Florida to the worst day imaginable. But I say the worst day imaginable. It's not that bad. You throw some sweats on, which is my favorite attire, and you just carry on your day, man. The garage is a little cold. The streets are a little cold in the morning, but hey, we get over it. We get through it. We get past it, man.
Exactly.
So we're talking about weather, man. I'm in Tampa. Where are you at right now?
So I'm in Orange County, California. So there's the Orange County, Florida, that's pretty close to you. I'm in Orange County, California, somewhere nestled between Los Angeles and San Diego. And here we're here for the warmth too. And here it's about 43 degrees. But it's just foggy and it's cloudy. There's no rain. There's no snow. It's nothing. It's just cold.
Yeah, so I guess that makes sense. When I was looking at social media, I saw you with in Murfreesboro. I'm guessing at a CrossFit competition with a team called the Cali Boys.
Yes.
So now it all makes sense. From the West Coast, is the West Coast the best coast?
We got some cool stuff. We definitely got some cool stuff, but my entire family, as well as where I'm most likely going to school next year, everything's on the East Coast. So we got snow, we got like the mountains, we have the beaches, like super cool beaches, surfing beaches. But when it comes to like personal stuff, I'm for the East Coast.
I hear you. I've never spent an extended amount of time on the West Coast, but it's beautiful. Where I was, San Francisco, Northern California, it was absolutely awesome.
It is unreal. We got nature, that's for sure.
I think it's a lot like Florida. When you go to North Florida and South Florida, it's two totally different. Like it's like you're not even in the same state sometimes. So like California to me reminds me of that. Southern Cal and Northern Cal, two totally different like areas as far as geographic landmarks and things.
it splits down the middle, and I think both the culture in both the states is very different because I go and talk to someone in Northern California, and it's just they may as well be from Texas, and I may as well be from like New York. It's
Right.
just two completely different things, and I assume it's probably actually I've been to both North and South Florida. It's very similar.
Yes, very, very much so. Well, man, we could rap about the West Coast all day, but let's get into this. Obviously, a guy from California. What's your athletic background growing up? Like, were you into gymnastics? Being a bodyweight specialist, like my mind immediately like goes to, well, these men and women that are bodyweight specialists are gymnasts. But was that the case for you? Were a gymnast growing up? What was the deal?
So when I was very young, my parents actually tried to put me in gymnastics. I would think I was like 3 or 4 because they saw me. I'd be climbing trees, I'd be bouncing off the walls. I was always into doing somersaults and cartwheels and whatnot. And on my very first day of kindergarten, I was 5 years old. I met this girl, and I was like, I'd never met a girl before like that. And she was doing cartwheels and the splits and everything. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. So the first day of kindergarten, she taught me how to do a round off, which is like a cartwheel, but you land with your legs together. And I came home and I was like, Mom, Dad, I have to do gymnastics. This was absolutely awesome. So about 2 months later, they put me in gymnastics. And from that point forward, I was about 6 years old. I did it through the point competitively to where I was 16. At that point, I had tendonitis in my bicep, both biceps, a total of 9 times. And I was like, I can't do it like this anymore. I just it gave me a lot. It was a lot of fun, but right from there, I found CrossFit, and that's where I got to move those skills over a little bit. So I did do gymnastics for 10 years, and it's like set in me. But I'm not. I had to move on for body purposes.
I mean, the In Off the Bench podcast, we have a show called Bats and Beams, and we focus a lot on college baseball, but also college gymnastics. And every gymnast we talk to goes through that. They're like the recovery and the amount of wear and tear on your body on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily just the meets and the matches. Like it's the actual practice that every single day for hours at a time, and like you're doing this at such a young age to be really good at it and to
Yeah,
be elite, that it takes a toll on your body for sure. So I can definitely see where you're coming from, man. Like you gotta reflect a little bit and kind of reevaluate, like, what are we doing, where am I going, and is this how I want to feel the rest of my life? Because I think at some point, like, you will start breaking down and you'll end up hurting yourself. And to me, like, being on the rings or being suspended in the air doing different aerials in gymnastics is not where I want to experience an injury. So
exactly. It was one of those things where I loved it. I had so much fun. It was once you get to a certain age, you spend 24 hours a week about doing gymnastics, and I love doing it. Like, it was everything in my life. But I'm 5'8", and I have been 5'8" since I was 13 years old. I was 16 years old. Like, I was almost a young man at the time, and I was 115 pounds, just based on what I had to do to keep myself light enough to be good at what I was doing. That, along with I was about at I think I was about at 5% body fat, and that's like, you really shouldn't get down that low. And that was not helping me recover. Like, I was getting the tendonitis, I was getting like pain in my knees. I felt like a 50-year-old man, and I was 16, and I was like, this is just, as much as I love it, I just can't. I can't be 30 and not able to walk.
all right, so then what? You push gymnastics to the side. I mean, obviously there's some components that you still do currently, but like once you make that decision, then what? What do you go to next?
So 3 weeks or so after I stopped, my buddy, he does bodybuilding now. He does bodybuilding and cycling, but at the time he was doing CrossFit. And he's like, dude, you'd love it. You got to come to my CrossFit gym. From what I've seen, I was a gymnast. Like, everything's like strict strength. I've like, oh, those guys that are like flopping around like fishes on the bar. I don't know, man. Because this was like 2018, and now it was a more of a stigma back then.
Yeah.
And He's like, no, trust me, you'll love it. You'll love it. So I go in for one class. I think the workout's Witten, which is like the 35 minutes of box jumps, running, and kettlebell swings. And I was 15. I was super light, but of the 10 people in the class, because of my cardiovascular, I end up winning. And I was like, yes, let's go. This is freaking awesome. And from that point forward, that was my new obsession. All of my energy that had just been tailored toward gymnastics was now on CrossFit. And I probably spent too much time doing CrossFit because CrossFit's lifting based, a lot of it. So I took my 5 hours a day doing gymnastics and tailored it towards CrossFit for the next about year and a half.
I mean, you are the guy that pisses a lot of people off. You go in there and your first time in the gym, you do Witten and you just demolish everybody. I'd go home and look at myself in the mirror and be like, you suck. Just do better. No, you look at you get in there and you kind of get past the stigma of what people have this misconception about with CrossFit is that it's only certain people can do it. You go in there and you go, oh shit, like this actually like box jumps, I can do those. Burpees, I can do that. Running, I can do that. Kettlebell swings, I can do that. Like you can tailor everything to your liking, but it's even better when you have a prescribed workout and you're like, I can do all those things. And not only do it, but you do it well. But yeah, you got in there and you did, it seems like what most people do when they find CrossFit and they fall in love with it is they needed to fill a void. And it's that competitive, whatever that competitive or whatever that thing is that you spend a lot of time on, like now you have this new avenue to learn something new. And now you're pushing your body to get better at that. And that's one of the things that I love personally about the sport of CrossFit is that it allows you to get back in that mode. You relive that time where like baseball. I was a baseball guy. I played baseball in college, and very blessed to have, the talent that I had. And once it was over, it was awesome to find CrossFit because like that's what I jumped into. But
Yeah.
it's awesome to find something to relive that passion, and it's almost from the very beginning when you fall in love with something. So it's pretty cool that you were able to find that. You you're a coach, right?
Yes. I tell my clients all the time because CrossFit for most people is like it's an obsession, and it's like it's just fitness. Like most people don't like get obsessed with fitness, but most people who do CrossFit specifically have some sort of obsession with it. And I tell my clients, I tell people in the classes all the time, I'm like, CrossFit is an outlet for those competitive retired high school and college athletes, whether they're 50 or whether they're 22 just graduating college and they're just moving on to something different. It is an outlet for us to put our obsession towards, because you can't, if you show up at, I don't know, let's say an LA Fitness, like 4 hours a day, and like that's an extreme, but you go back twice a day. Some people do double sessions. You go back twice a day, they're going to look at you a little weird. Like you don't just do that with like a regular day-to-day LA Fitness membership. But in the CrossFit
Right.
world, you're just considered like in love with the sport. It's just
Yeah,
like, okay, obsession.
yeah, and the thing is like when you go into like a globo gym, I kind of hate that word, but I mean that's the easiest way to explain it. It's you're you said, people go in and spend 4 hours there, and like now, especially at the turn of the new year, you get that. People go in for one workout and they spend forever there because you're waiting on things, and before you know it, you've shortchanged your workout just for time's sake to get out of there. The beauty of CrossFit is you can go in and for 1 hour commit yourself, and you don't have to wait on anything, and you get a kick-ass workout, and you can make it as easy or as hard of a day as you want by just you controlling your intensity.
Exactly.
um and I love that. It's takes a community that brings you together and you rally around, but also it takes some internal fight and some internal struggle for you to push hard. And I think that's where the growth and the change happens, especially when you're looking to be as good as you are in the fitness space with CrossFit and grid. So let's transition a little bit over to grid. Grid started off as the MPGL. It was this big grandiose idea, a lot of money, a lot of big stages, a lot of big names, and then that it fizzled out. I think financially it just couldn't make it. But the thought was, well, okay, well, if we take this thing and make it more regional, and the region was the state of Florida, we call it the Florida Grid League, we can maybe make this thing happen. And they did. They, Mather, and Ruby, they got together, they figured out a way to regionally make grid, work. And from then it's branched out to what we see today as the United Grid League, and it is, thriving. You've got multiple teams out of the state of Florida now. You've just expanded to a team in Houston. You've got players, and I didn't know this. I'm starting to learn this as I'm talking to people. Is that you have players that don't even live in the areas like yourself, and playing for teams that are, I mean, in your case, on the opposite side of the country, which is awesome. Like that kind of growth and that kind of evolution is in a professional sport is unheard of, but it's also what you look for when you're like, man, is this going to be around in a couple of years? Is this something that's going to be sustainable? So I ask you, David, as far as what you've seen from the evolution of the sport, you got to be happy about the growth and where the trajectory and where the sport's at right now, right?
Yes, 100%. So I think that the NPGL was a fantastic idea. I think that what they did is something people wanted to see. I think people wanted to watch it. And I think people did watch it. You had the big names, you had those CrossFit names, you had some of the big weightlifting names, powerlifting names, whatever it is. People watched it, but ultimately, what it's about is business. You can get everything going in the right order as it should be, but if your business tactics aren't quite right, it's going to fail. And I think if Mather and Ruby had taken control of it initially, had been like the initial owners of the Grid League, I think the NPGL might have flourished, but that's in the past. They have built the NPGL over the past couple of years, and even I've seen it. I've had 3 years on the grid, and even I've seen it expand. Like more and more people are showing up to the matches, and more like the matches are expanding. Like we had a match in Vegas this year. Obviously, there was the hurricane down in Florida, which caused ruckus with, which was absolutely awesome. And I think it's exciting to watch. Like I know I have a bias, but like I brought my girlfriend who knew nothing about CrossFit or Grid League or anything the first match that she came to, or more than just like she squatted with me a few times. But she thought it was very entertaining. Once she figured out what was going on, she's like, this is incredibly entertaining. And I love to see that we now have a team in Houston. We have a team in Georgia. We have a team purportedly that might be in Vegas next year. So I mean, like we're expanding across the country. We're getting further and further west, and I think that the sport is starting to get kind of that snowball effect that I think it deserves as an entertaining sport to watch.
Yeah, the biggest, if you want to know if the sport is entertaining or not, here's the biggest test. I have a 7-year-old. You take her and you say, "Hey, I want you to watch this." And if she watches it for a sustained amount of time, it's interesting. Hands down, because she like the attention that my kid has, like in regards to being able to just change the channel or change it to the next video, like it's unbelievable. So if she's willing to watch a race in its entirety, like, and she does, like she gets into it, she gets pumped up. She want, obviously her favorite color is pink. So anytime the palms are on, she's like, I want the palms to win. I want the palms to win. I'm like, it ain't about that. But
I love that.
you but you mentioned the sport growing out west. Before we talk about you and what you got going on for next season, tell me a little bit about how do you find grid? Like, is it something that you were in a CrossFit gym and kind of like because they naturally do the climates of the two sports kind of intersect, or was it something you knew about with the MPGL and you're like, I want to go do that, and so you research on how to do that?
So when I get focused on something, I get very narrowed in and actually don't see very much. So my knowledge about grid was actually very minimal before I found it in 2022. I was all set onto CrossFit. I'd seen some grid videos online. I'm like, damn, those people are absolutely they're killing it. They're fast, they're big, and I'd never foresaw myself doing something like that. And then I think it was in March of 2022, Taylor Stallings reached out to me on Instagram about a video of mine that I had posted back in 2019, I believe. It was a video of me doing 25 unbroken muscle ups. And she's like, there was a lot of things said, but basically she was like, would you be interested in joining Grid League? I didn't know who Taylor Stallings was at the time. I didn't know what Grid League was about. So I was like, I need to hop on a call first. I need to hear about it. I was also a minor at the time, and I needed to talk to see what my parents were thinking about it. But we talk on the phone for like probably 2-3 hours. I get all this information. Taylor Stallings is a very well-spoken person. She's very good at what she does, and she's very convincing in what she tells. And ultimately, I ended up joining the team. 2 weeks later, I was doing practices with the Orlando Aces, and a couple months later, I was out in Orlando competing on grid. No idea what to expect. I'd watched one grid match from a previous year, and I was like, I guess this is what we're doing. We won the first match, and from then on, I was like, this is awesome. I love this, and I fell in love.
So let me ask you this: are you doing remote practices at this point?
To some extent, not at this moment because the season just ended and we're more in an off season. People
Right.
are building strength, they're building stamina, whatever it is.
No, but
But
during the season when everyone's got scheduled practices, or if there are scheduled practices, are you doing this via like, a phone, or like how does a remote practice like for you? I know that this happens, so I'm always curious as to how people set this up, because like to me, like one of the hardest, most difficult things is to have a practice with someone 1,000 miles away while other people of the team are doing it in a gym somewhere. So how does a remote practice work for you?
so doing being on two different teams at this point, we have done remote practices with the Aces. We did remote practices. It was every Sunday. For me, it was 7 a.m. For them it was 10 a.m. Everybody except for me was out on the East Coast, or at least towards Louisiana, Alabama. So it was at least 2 hours ahead. But I was up at 6 o'clock every Sunday morning for about 6-7 months to practice on Zoom with the team. There were a couple other people that were on the Zoom call. It wasn't just me, because you had some people up in Connecticut or Delaware, and you had some people out in Alabama. But for the most part, most of the team was in Orlando, doing the practices over there, and I was out here in California, 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, just in the gym, 3 hours practicing with the team. And that was great. I think that was a good way of building team rapport. And like the Aces didn't end up winning the whole thing the year before last. It was a good way of building a team rapport because you were familiar with each other's faces. The first time you showed up for a grid match, you knew who everybody was, and you were like, I've talked to these people. We've all had team meetings and everything, and it was great. When I went on to the Sharks, it was more so you would send videos in the group chat, and everybody would like watch the videos, and everybody was expected to send videos. You were expected to participate. It wasn't so much a set practice because so many of us were dispersed. Well, a lot of them were in Florida, but the people dispersed in Florida were all over the state of Florida. And then we had people spread out all over the East Coast. Someone down in Puerto Rico. I was out in California. And it just didn't make sense to have an in-person practice because it'd only be like 4 or 5 people. But I think the different styles of practice, if you do it correctly and everybody participates, can both be just as good.
So what would you say is the most challenging part of the remote? Because it seems like a lot of it is positive, but there's got to be some setbacks and some challenges to being able to do that.
You show up to your first match and you don't quite know everybody's name yet. Like, you've seen a little boxes on the screen and whatnot, but you haven't met everybody. You show up to your first match, especially with a new team, and it's like, well, I know about 6 people well here, and everybody else I don't really know yet. And you got to learn how to. Your first day on the competition floor together, you have like 2 hours to prepare before. You got to get to know each other. You got to get to
Right.
working, and you got to build that rapport, which is doing it the day of is a little difficult. It doesn't matter if you've been on Zoom or if you've been on text message, whatever it is. It's just there's something different about being in person.
I mean, it's grid is a sport of communication. Whether it's you out there solo, you're having still to communicate to other members of the team, like different reps and different things and structure. And there are certain races that are partner forward that you've got to not necessarily have to talk, but you have to move in unison together, which takes like some communication. The mirror takes communication, the Jack and the Jill. Like there's a lot of different components that require different forms of communication. So I can see how, to me, I think that would be the challenging part. You show up for the first time together and it's like, well, what are we saying? Who's saying what? Who's leading? Because like it does take somebody to take charge to make sure all this happens. But for the most part, like I hear you say, man, like it's one of the reasons why I think the sport is in such good shape is that you're able to have remote practice and you can have athletes remotely play for so many different teams across the country because they can just show up for matches and get it done. And with the Sharks, it seems like different from the Aces. There's not really a set practice, but more so set parameters that you have to send in for practice. So I'm assuming Fico's sending you guys like testers or whatever, or requirements, and you film yourself doing it and time
Yep.
it and you send it in and he kind of maps it out from there. um you know let's get to, well, we'll get to that in a second, to this season. But you spent some time with the Aces, then you moved over and signed with the Sharks. Were you a champion with the Aces?
Yes, we.
what what is that like when you win it all? Like, is that like a gratifying feeling, or is it just like, man, I'm on the West Coast, this has been like a long like season? You said it's like 6 months of waking up at different times and like getting after it. Like, do you feel a sense of accomplishment? Can you appreciate winning it all, or do you go, "Oh, man, I'm just glad this is kind of over for now"?
It was great. The season is very long. It starts our first match is usually in early July, and our last match is usually in mid-November. That's longer than just about any sports season you're going to see out there. And but we practice. We practice from March, and that's a very long season. So there is a sense of finally I can take a break. Like my hands are beat
Yeah.
up, they're ripped, and I'm constantly just like my joints are sore and everything. But obviously, it's a fantastic feeling. We our hard work has been put to good use. It's like it builds the rapport as a team. You guys feel closer. You guys feel bonded. You guys made it through all these matches and you won the whole thing together. When we won undefeated that year. We went 6 for 6, and that's a great feeling. That's fantastic. And for me, it's slightly different. Like I do love playing grid, but to get out there, especially that year, I did have to spend a good amount of money to get out there. And it's like it's a hobby that I'm spending money for. But once we had won, it was basically like, well, this was a free hobby. Like I paid for the season itself, and I'm like, we got a little money from sponsorships. We got the winning money, and I was like, oh, I got to come out to Florida for 4 months, and I got to play a sport and do stuff with people that I like to be around and like a good environment. And I got to do it all for free. So that's a major win.
the the way I look at it is, in a growing professional sport, like that's the only way of sustainability, unless you have a ton of sponsors. But those, you just don't open up the doors and all of a sudden you got a line of sponsors coming rolling in. So it
Exactly.
takes some monetary commitment from the players themselves. But the way I look at it is, a lot of CrossFit athletes, and that's what Grid has, is a lot of CrossFit athletes and strength athletes. They're paying to go to, even weightlifters are paying to go to, meets and competitions, all over the country. And so no different than grid. Like when it's match time, it's almost like a competition weekend. You head out there, you spend the money to stay or do whatever you do, and you get after it and get it done. Um, so walk me through the process. You're a champion with the Aces, but then what spurs the movement to the Sharks?
So I don't want to make it seem like I have any sort of bad blood with the Aces whatsoever. I love the Aces. I think they're a fantastic team. A couple of times I'd been out after matches and stuff with a few of the Sharks, and I'd had a good time, and like I started to build a rapport with these people, and signing goes by. I'm not a fast. A lot of people will re-sign to a team very quickly. I still haven't re-signed to the Sharks yet. And it's not because I don't want to be on the Sharks again. It's just because I'm not a fast person to sign documents. I will take my time. I'm going to figure out exactly how I'm going to get it to happen and how it's going to look like. I like to plan things out. So I don't like to be too quick to just commit myself to something. And that's what happened with the Aces last year. It was expensive, and I'm paying for school. Like I'm in college right now, and I'm paying for school, and I have car payments and I have rental payments, and it's just like it's a lot of stuff to pay for. And basically what happens is I had enough people backing me on the Sharks that I was able to get a little bit of help from like Sharks brought sponsorships from Fico. Fico was super good. Fico and Conce were amazing about like they got our Airbnbs paid for and everything. So not everything was out of pocket, and it did make it a little bit easier on my situation at the time. And that's the biggest thing because I didn't have any bad blood with the Aces. I love the Aces. I love Taylor. I love Terry. They're all fantastic people. It made more sense for me that season to join with the Sharks.
David, how old are you, man?
I'm 21.
21, man. That's youthful. And I get it. Like money, especially when you're a college student and you're doing a lot of things and you got life expenses on top of all that. Like it is a tough commitment, and believe it or not, like that can be the determining factor whether who you sign with, because I don't think it's a matter of being able to be on a team. You could take your pick of any team in grid to be on. They would definitely have you. But yeah, when you can get help monetarily, for the expenses, especially if you're coming out to the West Coast, like that's huge. Um, you
Yeah.
know, let's talk 2024 season. All right. You sign with the Sharks, everything's good. You guys are moving and grooving. The season, I mean, you probably couldn't ask for a better regular season. Um, talk me through some of the highlights of just the regular season. Um, did you feel as though when you started the season you would be the top team headed into the playoffs?
I don't want to sound big head or anything right now, but to some extent, yes. I knew who we had on our team, and I know the digging that Fico did during the offseason. He took some of the best players from all the other teams, and he kind of just brought them together in one. So on paper, based on like, yeah, obviously the Atlanta Wild are a very strong team, but on paper we were the most well-rounded team. We have Quentin, who is he's been bodyweight specialist of the year like 3-4 years in a row. I'm now the bodyweight specialist. So we have two of the best bodyweight specialists in the league. We have two of the best utility players in the league, like Nick Shappy. He won utility player of the year.
Yeah.
And we had some new strong guys, some really strong guys that were easily cycling like 315 on clean and jerks and whatnot. We had on paper we were very set. Moving through the season, there were a few matches where they were closer than they should have been, and that's purely to I think my team can like we collectively can get a little cocky because yes, on paper we all know that we are a very good team, and we get let that get to our heads a little bit, which is where when we had a close match that ended, I don't know, 20-19. It's because we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I think we were a very good team that our only lacking sometimes was communication. We didn't communicate fantastic with each other all the time, but getting through the season, I kind of figured we would probably be in for a 4-4 season going into it.
Now, when you mentioned, Fico signs veteran players. Now, why? And this is just what I hear and what I've read is there was a lot of like animosity towards him for doing that. Why do you think that is? Because to me, that's the right move. If you want an experienced team and you want proven athletes, then you go and you sign people that don't have a place to play. Like, why not sign some veteran players to the team? Even if your entire team is composed of vets. Like, why do you think there was such a you know backlash in regards to him doing that?
Grid is not super big. It is a smaller sport. It's more tight knit, and everybody kind of knows everybody. And I don't think people were necessarily ready because he was taking the best players from the teams, and obviously the coaches don't want their best players leaving the team. But if you look at the NFL, like there's constantly players being taken for better, like a better setup on another team. Like that's how sports work. That's how there's business to sports. And I think that added a real aspect of just like FICO took a real sport thing and put it into a sport that is a bit smaller. And I think that did give the sport a little bit of just like leverage to start rolling downhill and moving faster because like you didn't see that before. Like you got set to a team and that's your team. But he added a professional aspect of it of like, oh, I got a better offer over here. So you guys are going to come to me because I have a better offer and we're going to play this like a professional sport.
I mean, you see it a lot in NBA, but like recently in the NFL, like the best running back in the league, Saquon Barkley, went from the Giants to a division rival, the Eagles, and it was purely for money, like because he was planning on getting paid with the Giants, but the Eagles wanted him and they had him, and so like his opportunity not only to win a championship but to get paid was better with Philly, and like you do what you got to do, and I think people a lot of times like they get hung up on this loyalty thing, especially when it comes to sports, and like there is a bit of loyalty that comes, but like you also are a professional and you have a finite amount of time to be in this professional scene, so you've got to maximize your ability to do what's best for you a lot of times, and people have a really tough time handling that, and that doesn't mean that you're a bad person, that doesn't mean that you're not a team player. It just means that like for me personally, I have kids, and like my family, like if I'm going to do what's going to be best for my family, and if people don't like that, then they can go f off. Like I like that's just how I feel. And I think that Fico brought a little bit of that. Like I'm gonna give these people and give these athletes an opportunity that's going to be better than where they're at. If they stay loyal and they stay where they're at, then so be it. That's fine. They can do that. But at least at the end of the day, he knows that he presented something that was they had to think about. And it seems
Yeah.
like a lot of people thought and went with it, and it worked. You guys ran through the regular season. You made it to the playoffs and kind of just ran into a buzzsaw. Like it was tough. I don't know. Let's talk playoffs. Like what do you think happened in the playoffs? What prevented you guys from winning it all?
So playoffs and championship were in the same day. Playoffs we it was closer than it should have been, but playoffs we took happening in the championship. I don't want to sound salty in any way because like it was a couple months ago. We've moved on and I'm not one of those players that gets like super there's players that'll like let their emotions get to them on the grid and I'm just not one of those players. I'm like whatever happens happens. But we had a lot of communication errors that day. I think we'd gone out the night before and I don't think we were necessarily in the best headspace necessarily. Like people who don't usually make mistakes, we were making mistakes and there were little things. I think that was also a very
Like when you say you went out, all right, let's like you went out, or you went out to dinner.
not we went to this like trampoline park thing and it was like we went and did a bunch of like high exertion stuff. We went to a trampoline park. We did like rock climbing type stuff. So like we didn't really recover our bodies. I don't know what everybody else did. I don't think everybody went out. Some people might have. I don't know for sure. That's just kind of what that's like a little buzzing that I heard. But I know that we all went to a trampoline park and we probably exerted more energy than we should have there, having come right off of a grid match. But it's like we weren't 100%. I've seen our team when we communicate properly, and we just like saw right through the competition.
Do you think that the practice structure, like, was a hindrance as far as communication? Like, just being like, you guys are so good and very professional. Like, we're not going to have a structured practice where we have to communicate with each other. You're just going to do your thing and submit videos because, like, we're going to maximize our time. We're not going to waste anybody's time. And like, I like that approach, but also like I could see where it could be difficult in these crucial moments when it comes down to communication, where maybe you haven't had the opportunities to communicate like that, from these practices.
I I think maybe that might have a little bit to do with it, but I did not see that huge of a difference between getting together on a Zoom call every weekend and sending videos. Like, for example, Sammy Nally and Nick Shappy, they're dating each other. They work out together all the time. And Nick Shappy is very good, like best utility player in the year. But gymnastics wise, I'm faster than him. But you throw Sammy Nally and Nick Shappy on a bar together and tell them to waterfall, and it's like absolutely unreal. You put me and Sam Nally together to do waterfall, and it's good, but because we don't spend that kind of time in person together, it's just not quite the same thing as the communication that comes from just being next to each other every day and having that sort of team communication. So I don't think there's as big of a difference between sending in text messages and talking over text and having like a video call. We had a video call every month during the season.
Yeah.
I don't think there's that big a difference between that and doing Zoom calls every weekend.
True, true. Fair enough. I was just curious. You always at the end of a season, especially like if every team, even if you win it all, you always look back and go, all right, well, what's something that we could have done better? What's something that held us back? What was the one thing that, maybe would have made the difference? And so like you start looking at all the little things that, because it had nothing to do with you guys' strength. It had nothing to do with, not being able to do elements. You were able to do everything. You were strong as hell. You had amazing athletes. It was just that one piece of communication. It seems like that was the biggest obstacle. But looking back on the season, are you ready to move forward? Are you passed it? You're ready? You're looking forward to 2025?
I am. I like I said, I'm not the most emotional person on the grid. Whatever happens, I think there's been one instance, and I think it's from this season where I got like a little frustrated. It was a Jack and Jill in the first match, and I had done a rope climb, and I it was a mess, and I was being subbed in, subbed out, subbed in, subbed out, and I got done with the first rope climb, and they're like, "Come back," because I thought I had finished, and I was like, "What?" Like I got a little frustrated because I was like, "What is going on?" And I'm trying to like obviously beat the team next to me, but other than that, I don't get super emotional on the grid. So whatever happened back in November happened November. Yeah, we didn't win. We didn't get a payout. It is what it is. We had a great season. We went 5 for 6. We had fun. We go out every match. Like after every match, we hang out. We have fun as a team, and I consider that all a great win. I'm excited to get to do it again next year.
Absolutely. I was, you mentioned not being the most emotional guy out there on the grid. I was scrolling through your social media yesterday, and I came across a recent post of the CrossFit total that you did, and you got pretty fired up on a 365 back squat, 5 pound PR. Man, that's pretty impressive for a guy who is not a very tall guy. You don't weigh a whole lot, and I don't even. It's probably like 3 times your body weight that you're squatting there. That's unreal. Here's what I will say. All right, I did the math. 8 pounds short of 1,000 pounds. Are you bitter about that?
Yes, because I
I
know
knew, I knew you would be. I thought I was like I. What was the plan? Did you go, because you can go CrossFit Total a bunch of different ways, but usually people go, all right, how do I hit this number? Or they just go, I'm going to treat it as 3, max effort lifts and whatever it is, it is. I'm not looking for whatever number. I'm just looking to PR certain things. You PR your back squat, but was there a number that you had set in mind?
Honestly, back squatting has always been the hardest thing for me. When I came into CrossFit, my back squat was 115. My bench press was 155. And it's been 6 years, but since then, that's always been incredibly hard to go. So I was like, if I can hit 95% on the back squat today, that will be a win. Because I wasn't planning on doing the CrossFit Total. This was something that my gym had programmed, and I have my own coach. So I see this on the board after I coach the 9 a.m. class. I'm like, hey, Robert, like, I know I have 5x8 back squats programmed today, but like the CrossFit Totals here, like I'm going to do my Metcon and everything I got to do afterwards, my lunges, whatnot. But I was like, can I do the CrossFit Total? And he's like, yeah, man, just take some videos, send me what you got. He's like, PR or die. And I was like, and the one that I PR the least, I do not PR my back squat. Like I PR my back. I was at a 350-pound back squat 2 years ago. This is a 365. Like that's not a huge improvement. I PR my deadlift all the time. Like I am bitter about the 1,000-pound because my best deadlift is 475, and I at 455. Like that's 455 is still a good
You
weight.
didn't even have to get 475.
No,
You could have done 465 and put you right there, man. Like that's the crazy part. But like those 3 movements, if you take them individually, like there's so many, like there's sticking points of all those movements. Like for you, when I watch the back squat, like you're clean getting to the bottom, you're clean coming out of the bottom, like right there, towards the top portion, you kind of hit the mud a little bit, but that's just because it's heavy as hell and you got 5-pound PR. And then the strict press, it's like I feel as though the strict press, it's like pushing through mud always. From the bottom to the top is just terrible. You can either, like, if you get it going off like from the bottom and you start moving and you have a little momentum, like you can pretty much muster your way through it. But like for me, like when I fail a strict press, it's because I get to the bottom and it doesn't do anything. It just sits there. It's just like,
done.
but then you hit the deadlift and I feel as though, man, you had more in the tank.
Yeah, I this wasn't a competition.
It did look heavy, like on the initial, like getting it off the ground, like, and that's always a tough part. But like as soon as the weights, like as soon as you got air under the weights, I felt like it was very smooth after that.
It's always that initial pull off the ground. And I if it was a competition, I was doing CrossFit Total on a competition, I would have been smart. Was what I did. I was like my PR is 47. I hit 455. It was hard, but it wasn't like impossible. My PR is 475, and I'm like, all right, I got 3 minutes left. I got 3 minutes left on this time cap. I'm gonna go 45. I took 2 attempts at 45. First one, not even movement. Second one, I got it about a half an inch off the ground, but I just could not break that. Once I have an inch off the ground, like I'm good. I'm going up. I just couldn't quite get it, so I ended up with a total much shyer than I should have hit, just because I got ahead of myself and I ran out of time, and I knew it wasn't, whether I had time or not, it wasn't coming off the ground.
Well,
But
you know what the goal is next time, and I don't know. Most people might do it every year. I don't know how often you retest the total. I mean, you're going to retest your individual back squat and your deadlift probably before you even do a total. But now you know that you got 1,000 in you at least. I know you might have 1,010 if you can, PR all those lifts. We'll see. But talking about, it's obvious that your training is on point. You're doing things. You're in the gym. You've got your own coaching. What's next for David Blatt? Are you doing the open? Are you doing, individual? Are you going to Wadapalooza? Are you, 2025 grid league? Are you gonna re-sign? Are you gonna sign with someone else? What's going on? Tell me about 2025. What are the plans?
so this initial goal, this goal right here, is I want to make it past the open. The open changed this year. Like usually it's the top 10%, and then it was 25%, and now it's It's 1%, and I've never ended up in the top 1%. I'm usually usually within the last hour or so, I drop from the 99th percentile to the 98th percentile.
All those jabronis doing it for a third and fourth time, man, like that pisses me off. That
Yeah.
aggravates me. Even though, hey, it is what it is. But see, I'm the type of person where I'm going out the gate unless I like have like I just misconstrue reps or just the structure of the workout or trip over something and do something like I don't normally do in an open workout. Like my best attempt is always going to be my first attempt. Like I could redo it 1,000 times. And some people are like, well, that's, most people do better the more times they do it. Not me. Like I'm out the gate giving you all I got and that's it. I know what my intensity level needs to be. And
Yep.
that it is what it is. But you do get people doing it 3 and 4 times. And, at the very last hour, they're submitting them scores and you're leaderboard surfing until it's finalized. But
Yep.
so you want to be in the top 1%. What does that do for you if you make top 1%?
So I get to go to semis, and it's always I'm a 160-pound guy. Like, I'm not very big. It's always been strength. Like, 100% of the time when I miss, I in 2022 I nearly made semifinals. The first workout, the one that had handstand push-ups and lunges, I was in the world. I was 76th, I think. When it
Jeez.
the GHG pistol and bring muscle up workout, I was like 100 and 150th, and then there was a wall ball rope climb workout, and I was like 200th, and I was like, by the time all those 3 scores were put in, I was sitting in a comfortable 40th place. There were 120 in North America that made it. Then you put in the other total, the overhead squat, the bench, and the clean, and it just tanks me down to 500. It tanks me down to 500, and then you add in like 500 place in that workout. I think after that I was sitting in like 175th. So it was still possible, but it was very unlikely. And then you put in the snatch, burpee, over the box, and row workout. And I can't snatch 185. I was unable to snatch 185 like that at the time, and that like I end up all the way down in 500 total place. And then same thing happened again in 2023 and in 2024. And it's just like, it's always the same thing. And I've been getting stronger, but I always move past the open. This is always in quarterfinals where I end up hitting my max. But I have to make it past the open this year. I'm not gonna like let myself. I can be in the top 1,500 in the world. I know I can. So it's just like doing it. And you were right with the going out balls to the wall the first time. Like, you don't know how bad it's gonna hurt you at the first time. You just go and do it. You're like, I'm gonna send it. I don't want to do the same again, because after you do it the first time, if you give it 80% effort, that still freaking hurt. And
Yeah,
you
it
don't.
sucks.
So you just got to give it your all the first time. And I'm in the very same mindset. Like, I think I've redone 3 open workouts in the 6 years that I've been doing CrossFit. It's just because you got to give it your all the first time. That's just what you got to do with it.
Yeah, and with a coach, it's a little bit different because you do relinquish a little bit of the control over to them, and if they say, "Hey, you need to do it again," then you're probably gonna redo it again.
Again.
Um, but obviously, are you doing any of the other competitions prior to the Open, or is your focus solely on the Open right now? Because obviously, I mean, we're weeks away from it, and so like it's gonna be it'll be here before we know it.
I was gonna do. I made the fittest experience. I aimed for pro division. I only ended up making the RX division, and there was no money on the line for the RX division, and I had just traveled around Europe and then some of Africa with my girlfriend a couple weeks ago. So I spent a boatload of money on that, and I just was not in the position to then go commit myself to. I would have stayed with buddies, so it would have been a lot cheaper Airbnb wise, but I just did not have the money to take off work for a week and go do that whole thing in Texas with this experience. I would have loved to, because it's right there with Wodapalooza. It's a cool competition. People know what it is, and I would have loved to go do it. It just my coach texted me a few days ago, and he's like, "Are you planning on doing this experience?" And I'm like, it's not making sense this year. I want to focus on my efforts on the Open. So as of right now, it's just my efforts are on the Open currently.
And then whatever happens. Okay, let's say you make it to semifinals. Does grid is there a decision that you have to make on whether you're gonna do grid, or is grid you're definitely gonna do it?
Grid is the most likely that doesn't happen. That doesn't have to do with CrossFit at all. That happens to do with my life is changing a lot. I still live where I grew up. Like I'm in school, but I'm in junior college right now, and I'm going to 4 year next year. My girlfriend's going to law school, and we're trying to make sure that we're ending up in the same place. And it's just there's a lot of life stuff, like big uprooting life stuff that I'm figuring out right now. And that's more what it has to do with. Like, I don't know what my time's going to be. I don't know where my time's going to be. And I have stuff to figure out over the next few weeks or so before I commit to it. And I'd say there's a 99% chance I'm going to do it because I always end up figuring out how to do it. I love doing it. I love the team that I was with. I always find a way to figure out doing it. I just want to figure out more of my life before I sign it on the dotted line, you know?
I mean, that's you're wise beyond your years with that answer, man, because a lot of people are just like, I'm in this competitive mode. I'm pushing everything to the side, girlfriend, priorities. My priority is the gym. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm focused on, and everything else kind of takes a hit. But for you, like you feel like you can do all of those things and balance it, and you just want to make sure like you cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure everything is taken care of. Because I'll be honest with you, Dave, this is coming from a dude that's 40. Like, your personal relationships outside of fitness is going to matter way more than your relationship with fitness, because fitness will always be there in whatever capacity, but
Yep.
those things, those personal relationships will go if you don't put in what you need to put in. So, man, I respect you for that. You mentioned, the possibility of a team going to Vegas. All right. Vegas, much closer to you on the West Coast. Would that be something that you would entertain? Or is it, you're going to go with the Sharks, or you're not going at all?
Not as of right now because like I need to spend another year with the Sharks. Like I spent 2 with the Aces, and I don't want to be known as the guy who just like hops around to the best opportunity all the time.
Right.
So I'm sticking with what I've got right now. There's also, like I said, there's a good chance that where I'm going to be ending up going to school is on the West Coast. I think I'm either going to be going to DC or Boston. So committing myself to a team in Vegas when by August I could be in DC just like would not necessarily make sense. Like I'm going to be a whole lot closer to
Right.
Florida being in DC than I would be to Vegas being in DC.
That makes sense, man. That's smart on your part. You got to map it all out, and I commend you for it, because it's not easy. Like, when you you throw life in there, those life thing, man, it's no joke sometimes. But um, before you get out of here, anything you want to plug or promote, man? I really appreciate your time today.
I mean, it's just I love what I'm doing. Most of my like you said, the building relationships thing, like that's very important. Most of my relationships, I Grid has not paid me a lot of money directly, but every time that I come out of a Grid season, I get promoted. I get to build my business. I'm a personal trainer, and having the backing of Bodyweight Specialist of the Year, I get like 3 or 4 new clients after every new Grid season. And having this on my resume now, like I got in the last 3 weeks, I have gained three new 3 new clients, which is great. Like it helps build my business, and like it's very important with the relationship building, like being there. Like if you focus everything on yourself all the time, like yeah, I love working out. I love to like put in my own effort, but I love just the relationship building. And I think you want to go far in life, like being that relationship builder with your clients, with your athletes, with your friends, everything. I think that's just like I think that's what it's all about. Like it's the relationships you make along the way. It's not directly just the fitness. And it's the biggest thing I want people to know, I guess, is it's just I want to be known as a guy who's for other people and not just oh, I'm the guy who's just the bodyweight specialist. I'm the best. Like, I just like look at me. I want to be like, well, yeah, but now I want to transfer that knowledge into your hands, give you something to
Yeah,
work with it.
it's like, hey, you can look at me, but let's look at you.
Exactly.
Like let's look at you.
Exactly.
Curious, what's the goal? To once you go to a 4-year school, like what's the plan after that? What's the you
So
wanting to stay
fitness
in
is
fitness?
I love fitness, and I've been in fitness all my life. Like gymnastics, I still consider a good part of fitness. Like it's been enveloped my whole life, and I don't ever plan on letting go of fitness. Like I always, once I graduate school, I want to be one of those, like once I get past my competitive years, I want to be one of those people who's in there every day doing their hour-long classes. But I don't really care to compete and be there my whole life. Like I want to go to law school. I want to become a lawyer. I want to get into a higher business side of things. And that's not because I don't like fitness. It's just because fitness has been my life my entire like childhood. And I want to branch out and have something a little bit different. Like I want to move myself away a little bit. And that's not to say that I couldn't be there. Like I work at 2 gyms right now. I do personal training. Everything I do is fitness based. I do grid. I work out myself, and I love doing that. And I may never let all of that go. I know I won't let go of my own fitness because I think that's very important.
Yeah.
But I want to have a little bit more, and that's what I'm currently aiming for. Like life could change, plans could change, but as of right now, that's where things are headed.
Hey man, I tip my hat to you. You got this, dude. Whatever, when I look at anybody in the fitness realm and I look at athletes like your caliber, you're dedicated to something. And so when you tell me this is what I want to do, like I have no doubt in my mind like you're gonna achieve those things just because you got it everywhere. You're physically
Appreciate it.
capable, but also up here, like you're smart enough to know. Like,
I
and
appreciate
I'll
it.
be the first one to tell you, like, life ain't about like it ain't about being the smartest dude. It's just being able to figure out life. And if you can figure it out and not wait for somebody to help you figure it out, man, you'll go a long way, dude.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah,
It's good
man.
words to
Well,
have.
I'm gonna let you run. I appreciate your time. I wish you the
Awesome.
best of luck and whatever happens, man. Maybe we can come back on and we'll rap about it, and we'll talk about maybe 2025 bodyweight specialist of the year. What?
That'd be the goal. That would be
All
the
right,
goal. All right. Thank
David.
you
I
so much,
appreciate
man.
your
It was a
time.
great time.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
David Blatt, everybody. If you like hearing David's story, or you
Awesome.
just like hearing us average Joes talk X's and O's, please like and share the podcast
All
on
right.
Facebook, retweet us on X. Listen to subscribe wherever you stream your podcast. We got good episodes coming up. We got Mick Paul, LSU baseball tonight. We've got Dalton Bargo, Tennessee baseball tomorrow. We've got Fico Gomez, the Southwest Florida Sharks coach and owner, Thursday. And then Friday, we're ending with Orlando Aces, Ryan DeMatti. So a big week of guests, a big week of interviews. So we hope that you stick around and tune in for all of those. And this has been the In Off the Bench podcast, Grid and Grind Show. As always, remember, strong body, sharp minds, grit and grind all the time. We are out.